Welcome, everybody. I am Laura Reeves, host of Pure Dog Talk podcast, and I'm joining you here at Show Dog Prep School's Sparks and Barks. Very excited about that. And we're going to talk a little bit about actually a course that I teach for Show Dog Prep School called Building a Breeding Program. And I'm just going to give you some highlights, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and know that there is a whole lot more to this that you can find if you sign up for your course at Show Dog Prep School today. So, building a breeding program. The course is actually the collected wisdom because there is so much knowledge out there. And I am not going to pretend that I've got all of it. Trust me, I don't. I learn something on my podcast every single day. Every single person I talk to about dog breeding teaches me something, enhances, accentuates, brings something back from the depths of my memory, whatever it is. And so I think it's really important to understand that you have to be a lifetime learner. When you're breeding dogs, you can't decide, oh, I got it all figured out and just leave it there because it ain't going to work. So just a little bit of a brief introduction. I grew up in dogs. My parents bred field trial labs when I was a kid back in the 70s. Then they became involved in Clumber Spaniels and were very, very actively involved in breeding Clumber Spaniels for 30 some odd years. And then we were introduced to German wire-haired pointers. I started with my mom with German wire-haired pointers and have continued since then. So pretty much since the early, like 75-ish, 6, somewhere in there, I've been around dog breeding, whelping, raising, training, etc. So that gives me a little bit of depth of field, I guess. So one of the things that is like a truism, but there's a reason for it when you start to think about breeding dogs is that you need to get a good foundation bitch. There's an old saying that says garbage in, garbage out. It really applies to dog breeding. And I don't mean that to insult your dog or anyone's dog. The fact of the matter is there are fabulous companion animals out there who are not going to be your best foundation bitch for whatever reason. Temperament, structure, health testing, all of those things. And so it is not an indication of you have a bad dog if you don't have a great foundation bitch. It can be a great dog that is not a great foundation bitch. And that's so hard. And that is one of the most difficult things I find for new breeders getting started is to evaluate critically their own bitch and say, this is not the right animal. This is not the dog that I want to start to build a breeding program on, that I want to use to successfully influence the quality of this breed in the next 20 to 30 years or 40 years or however long. And that is part of the planning process. When you get involved in breeding dogs, it's not just, hey, I just want to have a litter of puppies, right? I mean, we all know this. This is a planned and thoughtful process for preservation breeders. And so if that is your goal, then finding the right foundation bitch is imperative. It will save you enormous amount of effort down the line. And so when I say find a good foundation bitch, and you talk to the other legends, talk to people who are legends in this sport, talk to people, read Pat Trotter's books, read all the books, do all that stuff. Everybody across the board, find a nicely line-bred bitch. Not necessarily inbred, but nicely line-bred. In other words, start with something that you know is going to reproduce relatively faithfully what you are looking for. Start with a bitch that has a solid temperament, that's been well socialized, well raised herself, because that maternal instinct is absolutely transferable to those puppies. Find a bitch that passes all of her health clearances. Don't start with, oh, well, she only has this one problem. No, start with a high quality bitch that clears all of the requirements in your given breed. And it may be that you wind up acquiring an older bitch. It may be that you work with a breeder and find a mentor, and they've bred what they wanted to from this particular bitch, and maybe she has a litter and it's not really the direction that that particular breeder is looking to go in, but it could help you go in your direction. There's lots and lots of ways to do this, but that foundation is called a foundation for a reason. Okay, that's start strong. The next thing that I think is incredibly underrated by too many people is the art of reading a pedigree. And once you have that foundation bitch and you know that it's nicely line bred and has a strong pedigree because you read the pedigree, right? Then you need to start looking for a stud dog that complements her, but you need to be able to understand what that pedigree means. So what does it mean that this dog and this dog and this dog and this dog all are the same dog and they're all in the same spot? Okay, maybe that's a little too much line breeding. Or how come there's not a single anything the same in 10 generations? Okay, that's not enough line breeding, right? So those are the sorts of things that you want to determine ahead, to know what your plan is, to know what you're looking for, to get input from a mentor on, so that you know exactly where you're going and how you're going to get there before you get started. If you want to walk from Oregon to New York, just putting the sun to your back isn't going to do it. You have to know where you're going and you have to know how you're going to get there. And breeding dogs is a whole lot like walking from Oregon to New York. Okay, final tip of the day. Health. We're going to go back to health. As you start your search for a stud dog and building this breeding program based on that strong foundation bitch, your best friend in the world is going to be OFA's vertical pedigree. You're going to type in your dog's name in the OFA database. You're going to look at all their clearances. Okay, I know that. Then you're going to go to what's called the vertical pedigree, and you're going to click on it. And you're going to do that for each and every single one of the heritable concerns that OFA can test for in your breed. And you're going to find out that, oh my, while my bitch has OFA good hips, nothing behind her does. And every cousin and aunt and uncle and grandparent is dysplastic. That could be a problem, right? So that vertical pedigree really gives you information. And I just had an amazing interview with Jimmy Moses, actually, talking about German Shepherds. And it was his comment that I found really powerful, that they had their best success in the German Shepherd breeding program that he's working with when they started taking into account the whole width of the pedigree, not just the depth, but the width. And that he would personally, this was his comment, you can listen to this on the podcast that's coming up in a few weeks on this topic. He said he would rather breed to a dysplastic dog whose every other ancestor in the pedigree was good or excellent than an excellent dog who had no other siblings or relatives or litter mates or parents' litter mates or what have you that had that same graded hips. So just go check out the vertical pedigree. Go look and tell yourself that this is the most important thing you're going to do as you start to establish the health going forward of your particular breeding program. So there's lots more in the Show Dog Prep School course on building your breeding program. There's lots of collected wisdom, way more than mine. So look forward to seeing you guys show up in that class here in the coming days. All right. Thank you.